What's up, y'all? If you're seeing this, you know what it is. You needed this. So, look, man, today we're going to talk about um, culture versus God, right? Culture versus God. And we're more specific going to talk about manhood, right? I think in today's society, manhood is definitely under attack, right? I think we can all agree upon that. But not only that, culture has done a really good job of changing the way we view manhood, right? And what does it mean to be a man, right? So this is just what God has kind of given me through the men that God surrounded me with, through my development into becoming a man of God more specifically. So yeah, let's get into it, right? I think we have to first talk about, you know, identity, right? The enemy has done a great job of confusing us what a man really is, right? Like, what is a man? What is why was he created? What was his responsibility, right? And if we look all the way into Genesis, man was created to subdue and colonize heaven and bring it down on earth, right? To rule, domain, have dominion over this earth, right? God created us in his likeness and image, right? So therefore we have characteristics, right, that God has, right, in order to rule and reign over this earth, right? Now, I'm sure you heard the story before, Adam and Eve, right? And when Adam bit the apple, we fell from that presence with God. We fell from that perfection of what God intended life to be like, right? And that's when sin entered this world, right? And once sin entered into this world, that's when greed, lust, selfishness, all that stuff started coming into how we live our lives today, right? And obviously 2000 whatever years from that, we're still dealing with these issues, right? So you look at all religion, you look at all forms of government, it's all with the focus of getting back to it. Whether people know it or not, the focus is getting back to that perfection, right? Getting back to God's heaven on earth. Does that make sense? And the enemy is smart enough to know that if men don't know why they were created, right? And who they were created by, then there's no way they can colonize earth, right? Bring heaven down on earth and be and do everything that God has called us to do, right? We look at what society says a man is, right? Um, we can go a whole bunch of different ways with that, right? But it's not this overly masculine, toxic, type of man. It's not a weak, timid, scared type of man either. I think culture has done a horrible but good job, right, of confusing us of what men are today, right? Especially in today's society when men want to be women, women want to be men. The roles are kind of interchangeable. There's a lot of men that have dropped the balls, right? So women have to have, take that role for them. I think as a man, biblically, right, God calls us to be a cultivator. He calls us to be a leader. He calls us to be an extension of himself, right? So what does that mean? That means loving how Christ loves. That means leading how Christ leads. That means being a servant leader, right? That means holding yourself accountable, right? And building not only just your family, building community, living with honor, integrity, character. These things, don't get me wrong, are not always easy, right, to get and obtain. But these things are characteristics that as a man, you have to have, right? That you absolutely have to have. Because if you don't, I suggest to you that you can never become what God has called you to become without those qualities. So how do we become that, right? I think first, man, you got to go to the person who created you, right? The person who designed you. We have to go into, we have to dive into that. We got to know who we're created by, why we're created, what was the mission, what was the goal, right? And I'm gonna condense it. And we're gonna do another video about this, but in a nutshell, God created you, man, the one I'm talking to. He created you to be a vessel for him on this earth, right? To bring down heaven, its rules, its precepts, its laws, and to rule and have dominion over this earth, right? That's why you were created, to give him glory in everything that you do, right? Now, it gets fun when you start discovering how God allows you to do that, right? Whether it's through art, whether it's through sports, whether it's through politics, whether it's through teaching, whatever the case may be, right? That's where it gets really interesting. But each and every one of us has that same purpose. Every single one of us, right? And the quicker we can dive into, the quicker we can discover that purpose, the quicker we can, man, really operate in purpose, right? And really affect and change the lives that God has surrounded us with, right? So that's the first step, right? Knowing your identity, know who you are, whose you are, and starting to operate in that, right? And now we get to these characteristics that I think every young man or man should know. We talk about honor, we talk about integrity, we talk about character, we talk about discipline, right? Accountability. These things, grace, love, peace, joy, all these fruits of the spirit, we have to know how to not only just operate in them, we have to know how to live in them and embody them in such a way that people can get it from us. Does that make sense? Right? So when you walk, when you talk, when you move, when you do business, when you do anything, people should be able to not only see but feel the essence of all those fruits, right? And look, I'll be the first to tell you, it takes time. It takes time to develop all those things. It might take 5 years to learn one lesson, right? But we have to do the work. We have to do the work to grow. And God's going to be with you, right? As you grow and as you make mistakes and get better and make mistakes and get better. It's a process just like anything else. It's like lifting weights, right? You don't just jump under the bench and start benching 315, right? But you have to start with 135 and you got to go to 175 and you got to go to 225, right? And the more you rep it, the more you get better at it, the stronger you're going to become. So it's that same thing. So my second point is, man, you got to find yourself a community, right? You have to find yourself a community of believers, a community of men of God, a community of men that are at where you're going and behind you trying to follow in your footsteps as well, right? Because both of those men, both of those groups are going to hold you even more accountable, right? So you have to find that community because it's going to make you so much better. We cannot do this alone, fellas. Hey, I'm just going to keep it a buck. You cannot do it alone. It's just like playing football or basketball. You can't be the only one. You can't, right? And you will never be able to succeed if it's just you, right? So find that community. If you don't have the community, man, reach out to certain people. You got YouTube, Instagram to get the information, but you need a solid group of men. Pray for it. Pray for that group of men. God will give it to you. I promise you, right? It's going to give you a safe place to be vulnerable, to hold you accountable, to sharpen your skills as iron sharpens iron, right? It's going to give you that safe space to grow and to be the best man that you can possibly be, right? So first discovering identity, then you start getting yourself around a community, right? And then you got to hold yourself accountable, right? You got to do the work. You're not going to get swole. You're not going to get strong by never going to the gym, right? You got to get in there and you got to do the work, right? So that means you're going to have to do a lot of hard things, right? That's going to open up the access so that God can flow through you, right? What do I mean by that more specifically? I mean, there's things as men in today's society, especially, that we're going to have to stop doing and other things that we're going to have to start doing. For example, get into your word, start doing it. Get into the word, start studying, get into it, start doing it, right? Things you need to stop doing. I know I'm gonna get some pushback, but stop having sex. Stop masturbating and watching porn, right? And I'm not just talking about semen retention. I'm talking about really eliminating all distractions so you can be in alignment with what God has for you, right? You have to be able to be in alignment with what God has for you. And if you're doing all these other things, right, you're taking yourself out of alignment. So God can't move freely through you, right? So no sex, no porn, no masturbation, living with honor, integrity, and doing your deals, right? You got to do the right things, right? Man, getting emotionally intelligent, right? Getting emotionally intelligent, dealing with it, healing, doing what you got to do, being a man of your word, right? Being a man over, let your yes say yes and your no means no. Protecting and providing, right? This is a big one, especially in today's society, y'all. I think to a certain extent, right, we're created to protect and provide for our wife, right? Most definitely in our kids. But I think that just needs to be something naturally that you do, right? You look to protect the women. You look to protect the less fortunate or the kids or whatever the case may be. You are a protector. That's who God created you to be, right? You are a provider. Now, I'm not saying, hey, give money to any and everybody to a certain extent, right? But you have to provide for them, right? Even if it's prayer, even if it's, looking out for them, even if it's a word of encouragement, right? Be that provider that God created you to be, right? And definitely with our women, especially the women that you're choosing to build a life with, right? Be her protector and provider. And when I talk about provider, especially the woman that you're seeking, you're pursuing, I mean all aspects. It means physically, mentally, financially, emotionally, right? Be that provider that God created you to be, right? Why? Because he created you to do it. So you think he's just going to leave you, like if you're in alignment, right? And you're operating in your purpose and you're operating your identity that he created you to be, you think he's going to just leave you out to dry? No, he's going to provide for you just as you provide for your family, right? So I think when we do these things, right, which is really opposite of what culture is teaching nowadays, right? Culture is teaching us to, hey, have sex with as many women as you can. Women are just in this box and you got to keep them there. Hey, be a bachelor as long as you can, as much money as you can. That's the only important thing, right? Have a cold heart. All these things are lies. I'm telling you, they're lies. They're lies that's trying to get you out of your alignment, that's trying to get you out of your purpose and confuse you about your identity, who God created you to be, right? So when we do these things, when we eliminate all that and we cancel out all the noise and get in alignment with God, man, it can be challenging. I'm going to keep it a buck with you. It can definitely be challenging, but life is going to be so much better, right? Because now you're operating in this purpose. You're doing what God has called you to do, So yeah, I think culture has done a really good, but bad job of confusing us, right? And I think us as men, when we begin to really operate as men, right, in all these different aspects, and don't drop the ball and constantly pursuing Christ and being a reflection of him, I believe that the family gets stronger. When the family gets stronger, the community gets stronger. When the community gets stronger, that's when you see states change. That's when you see countries change and ultimately the world, right? We're meant to colonize the earth. Think about what that means. Take the government, the kingdom that's in heaven, and dominate and subdue this world. That's why we were created. So why are you not operating in it? Why are you not operating in it? Look, this is a challenge, right? End of the video, right? This is a challenge. Man, we don't have time, fellas. Seriously, we don't have time to be playing around, right? Smashing all the women and doing this and not taking care of kids and wilding out and drinking and smoking and doing all these things, right? And missing your purpose. The biggest failure in life is to be successful at things that God never intended you to do. Man, we got to stop playing around, fellas. Let's get to work. So this is my challenge to you. today. Start today. And look, small steps, one decision at a time. Let's get better. Let's discover our identity, right? Let's make those changes. And let's be everything God called us to be. Because I promise you, your wife, your kids, the generations that's going to come from you are going to thank you. They're either going to thank you or they're going to have to fight these battles on their own because you didn't do it. Think about that. And you already know, if you're seeing this, you needed this.